All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Today, we really have one hell of a broadcast. Normally, I don't do live streams on the weekends, on Saturdays or Sundays, but folks, a lot is going on today. And so I'm just making sure that we are live. Today, we're doing something very special. In addition to all of the breaking news coverage we have today, we are doing a multi-stream on both YouTube and on Rumble at the very same exact time. Which means if you want to watch on YouTube or Rumble, that's great either way, but we are live on both platforms. So we have a Rumble live chat and a YouTube live chat, the first of maybe many to come. So thank you all very much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and hit the like button down below and follow the channel. Folks, let's get to the news. Like I said, we have one hell of a show. Earlier today, bombshell information has come out just a couple hours ago, which is suggesting that Attorney General Pam Bondi herself was actually blindsided, caught off guard. This was not part of her plan for this 2-page Jeffrey Epstein memo to come out, which got released 4 days ago now, and that there might actually even be an ongoing concerted agenda to undermine and to get rid of Pam Bondi, and that maybe even Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are pulling the strings. Now, I don't like being in a position where I have to defend Pam Bondi, but we got to talk about what's going on. This might be the case here. Now, beyond that, so we're going to break down that entire situation. Crazy situation, crazy developments every single day now regarding this Epstein thing. We also are hearing right now that the Trump administration is cooking up a massive conspiracy case to finally start dismantling the deep state, as it is called, and that maybe Matt Gaetz has been summoned to Washington, D.C. He was going to be speaking at the Turning Point USA convention later today, but that he has redirected to D.C. and that maybe he is going to be directly involved in this conspiracy case to take down the deep state, as they are saying right now. And then also, we hear from Charlie Kirk, Megyn Kelly, and Tucker Carlson. Everybody's talking about who was Jeffrey Epstein really working for? Was he a lone operator, as we are being told to believe? Or was he working for some sort of intelligence apparatus, some sort of intelligence community, the American intelligence community, some foreign abroad intelligence community? Who was he working for? And so we hear a lot about that discussion from Charlie Kirk, Megyn Kelly, and Tucker Carlson, who talks a lot about that. And then, of course, we're going to add some more insight and really break down this entire situation. Namely, though, there was a 10-minute long Tucker Carlson monologue that he gave yesterday evening, and it's going viral. Folks, today, by the way, this is going to be a very controversial broadcast. We're going to talk about some sensitive issues. And but you know, it's time to put our big boy pants on. If we want to if we want to really take apart the deep state and root out the corruption, we need to identify where it's coming from, who's doing it, who's pulling the strings. That's what we're doing today. We're going to be talking about some big boy conversations, to say the least. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm just checking. We're live on Rumble and we are live on YouTube at the very same time. Just making sure everything is working here. Okay, so folks, let's get into this. Now, yesterday afternoon, this is what we heard. This is the news of yesterday evening, yesterday afternoon, late afternoon. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are considering resigning from their respective positions within the FBI if Pam Bondi does not get fired. And so for the last 12, 18 hours, every single person around the world has been calling for the resignation of Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi has got to go, etc. Well, there might be more to this story here, okay? Yesterday evening, we also heard from, this is a guy named Todd Blanche. He is the Deputy Attorney Director serving directly underneath Pam Bondi. This is Pam Bondi's #1 guy, okay? He dropped a tweet yesterday evening. He said, and I quote, this is his official account. He said, "I worked closely with FBI Director Kash Patel and FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino on the joint FBI and DOJ memo regarding the Epstein files. All of us signed off on the contents of the memo and the conclusions of the memo." This is that 2-page long memo regarding Jeffrey Epstein from 4 days ago that said, this memo, as a reminder, it said that there was no proof of any sort of blackmail operation, that Jeffrey Epstein was a lone operator, and that there is no, quote, incriminating client list. Not that there is not a client list, but that there is no incriminating client list. And so Ted Blanche is saying the FBI, the suggestion by anyone that there was any daylight between the FBI and the DOJ leadership on this memo's composition and release is patently false. So this is the deputy director of the Department of Justice. He's saying, listen, hey, I worked with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, the top two guys in the FBI, to draft up this memo, to draft it up. We released it. So he's coming out and saying, Director Kash Patel and Bongino, they knew exactly what was on this memo. They endorsed it. They drafted it up. They signed. They put it together. They released it together. Okay. Curious, because this one of the ideas over the last couple days is that who put this memo together? There was no signatory. Nobody signed off on it. It was released on about 4 days ago at the dead of night, middle of the night. No signature on it. Who wrote this thing? And then also, it was released to Axios, which is, I think everybody agrees, sort of a far left, media outlet. Okay, so it was kind of released in a very curious set of circumstances. Well, take a look at this. Charlie Kirk is at TPUSA right now, and he's, shaking hands with all these guys. All the top conservatives in the country are at this convention right now, this moment. Charlie Kirk says, this is just a couple hours ago, 2 hours ago, he said, I just got to see the emails myself. And by the way, he's responding to Todd Blanche, what we just took a look at. Okay, Charlie Kirk says, I just got to see the emails myself. This is true. And Pam Bondi wasn't on the email chain about the details of the memo. So what is Charlie Kirk saying? Charlie Kirk is saying that Pam Bondi wasn't involved in this memo at all. She doesn't know what was on it. She wasn't a part of drafting it up or releasing it. And Pam Bondi also, she wasn't even on the email chain in which these guys were discussing the memo, the manufacturer of the memo. So what we know now is that Todd Blanche, the deputy director of the DOJ, and the top two guys in the FBI, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, they helped write it, they helped draft it up, they helped release it alongside the deputy director, but that Pam Bondi didn't actually do any of this herself, that she was blindsided, she wasn't a part of this at all. And so let's break down really what this means, okay? I haven't seen anybody today talking about this. I was reading through this and I said, hold up, wait a minute, this is breaking news that nobody is talking about. Let's go point for point here. Right now, we are hearing that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are both ready to resign if Pam Bondi is not fired for her handling of the FBI and DOJ Epstein memo. So that's the news of yesterday. The Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, they're so mad at Pam Bondi over the way she handled this, they're ready to resign unless she's fired. Okay, we have a lot of people saying that right now. We also know that the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, has confirmed that both Kash Patel and Dan Bongino both personally helped draft the memo. So it's not like they didn't know what was going on here, because he's saying that they were part of the drafting of this. And then we also hear now Charlie Kirk is saying that Attorney General Pam Bondi wasn't even aware of what was inside of the memo and that she wasn't even on the email chain. And so this is where we can try to form a conclusion, or maybe get a little bit, dare I say, conspiratorial. Is it possible that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino intentionally released this very frustrating memo, this very dismissive memo, to Axios, of all publications, a far left outlet, in order to try to get rid of Pam Bondi, knowing, because who's taking all of the blowback right now? Who is everybody mad at? Everybody's pissed off right now at who? Everybody's pissed off at Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi's she's the head of the Department of Justice. Okay, whatever. Everybody's pissed off at Pam Bondi. And so is it possible? And by the way, in no way am I like defending Pam. I don't really care. I'm not a shill for Pam Bondi. I don't care about Pam Bondi personally, but I'm trying to make sense of this situation. Is it possible, once again, that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino intentionally released this 2-page memo to Axios in the dead of night without any signature on it in order to try to kneecap and get rid of Pam Bondi, knowing that she would take all the blowback. And then after this got released, then they come out and say, listen, or I guess they didn't say it, but you're hearing from people, insiders, that, hey, we're gonna retire. We're going to resign. We're going to resign unless Pam Bondi gets fired. Well, as it would turn out, Pam Bondi actually had nothing to do with this. As it would turn out, according to Todd Blanche, the deputy director of the Department of Justice, actually, it was Kash Patel and Bongino that wrote this thing in the first place. So the situation gets even weirder. Okay, now we're going to move on. We have more to talk about. That's all of this is kind of tangentially related. So everybody's got to pay attention today. Like I said, this is going to be a big day and this is going to be a very controversial day. So let's all be mature here. The next thing here is we have a guy named John Solomon, who is a right-wing journalist with access to the interior of the Trump administration. He's in the know. He's a Washington, D.C. insider, conservative. He's talking to all the conservative politicians. This is him right here, John Solomon. So he came in here on Real America's Voice earlier today, just a couple hours ago, and this guy dropped an absolute bombshell, okay? He said there's actually more to this entire situation, and in fact, there's another situation loosely related. The Trump administration is taking on the deep state, specifically as it relates to, what was it called? Crossfire Hurricane. Take a look at this.
And I think next week, over the next 10 days, the base who's been wondering, where's all that accountability? They're going to get some big surprises over the next week concerning where the conspiracy began a few weeks before Crossfire Hurricane was open and when it ended, all the way in 2024.
By the way, real quick, what is Crossfire Hurricane? This is an investigation right now. Crossfire Hurricane began in the spring of 2016. This is when the Obama-era FBI and CIA started secretly investigating Donald Trump about his supposed collusion with Russia. This is the beginning of the Russia hoax. It was called Crossfire Hurricane. This is the deep state, if you want to call it that, trying to paint this fraudulent narrative that Trump is supported by Putin, and this is actually the Trump campaign in 2016 was a part of a Russian agenda. You guys know the story. Play the video.
When they were still trying to pursue Donald Trump to keep him from winning the presidency, there's a big case that's been built by the Justice Department and the FBI. It's been masked by a lot of this infighting and drama and soap opera stuff. But the truth of the matter is, MAGA base Americans are going to be happy when they see where this is all heading in the next few weeks. Okay. Kash Patel is going nowhere. I hope Dan Bongino isn't going anywhere, but I do think he's going to take some time over the week.
Pay attention. He's saying Kash Patel is not going anywhere. He's wink, wink. He's acknowledging all the drama right now about the Epstein stuff and Pam Bondi. He's saying Kash Patel's not going anywhere. Dan Bongino, I'm not sure. I hope he stays. Okay. Little tidbit of information there.
Going to think that through.
So hold it. We got three huge leads there.
Yep.
Number one, I want to go back. You're saying the 10-year conspiracy against President Trump to try to thwart his first term, steal the second term,
right,
and basically surround him in his second term or third victory.
Yep.
That has been an ongoing investigation that the FBI is already doing.
Yeah.
Does the
There's
Brennan
been a conspiracy case? There was hinted at. In fact, this was hinted at, Steve, in some of the media reporting, but I've got it confirmed. There's a conspiracy case that was opened that looks at this window as a very large window. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a special prosecutor named by Pam Bondi in the next week or two.
Special prosecutor named by Pam Bondi in the next week or two to investigate this anti-Trump, Russia hoax, Crossfire Hurricane, bullcrap. Special prosecutor, well, folks, like I said a moment ago, Matt Gaetz was planning on attending this TPUSA event today. He rerouted. He's going to Washington, D.C. now. Why is Matt Gaetz going to Washington, D.C.? Might Matt Gaetz end up being the special prosecutor for this deep state investigation?
And why does this become significant? Because you don't have to necessarily then bring the grand jury or the indictment in Washington, D.C., where the 90% Democrat jury pool probably won't convict even if they had a murder. it allows them to go to someplace like Florida. One act of the overt conspiracy could very well be, Steve, that they raided President Trump's Mar-a-Lago house with false pretenses, and then you can bring the grand jury in Florida.
They did.
You can bring the indictment in Florida because an overt act of the conspiracy occurred there. Maybe several overt acts of the conspiracy occurred there. You don't have to have a all-blue jury in Washington, D.C. that has Trump derangement syndrome. So this has been going on behind the scenes. I've been working on this. I decided tonight to get some of this out there. Been talking about it in my show. This is a really big deal. Now, who becomes a special prosecutor? How far-ranging is it? That's to be determined by the scope memo that a Pam Bondi would write. But there is some work on a scope memo that's been done already, and there is an enormous opportunity.
By the way, little takeaway here. What we can sort of infer this. What does this mean? Pam Bondi's overseeing this. Pam Bondi's doing this. Pam Bondi's doing that. What does this mean? Safe to say, Pam Bondi is not going anywhere. You guys have seen the mob. They've raised up their pitchforks over the last 12 to 18 hours. Pam Bondi's got to go. Got to get rid of Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi was responsible for all this Epstein stuff. Pam Bondi's got to go. Like we said, maybe actually this Epstein memo, she wasn't involved in it at all. That seems to be the case right now. We know she was, according to Charlie Kirk, she wasn't even a part of the drafting of the memo or the email chain. I guess maybe she could have been involved at some other point, but seems like her involvement was limited, that other people were taking care of that memo. And then also she has new projects coming up on the horizon. Seems like she's not going anywhere.
For those of us who've been calling for accountability to see a path to it for the first time, a legitimate path, not smoke, not mirrors, a legitimate path to accountability.
Also, let me just ask you on this conspiracy, does that mean, because people talk about the statute of limits and you can only get Brennan for perjury, lying to Congress, right, that you can't get him for everything involved in Crossfire Hurricane, everything involved with the nullification project, the Russian hoax. Are you saying by being a criminal conspiracy that's still ongoing that we can go back in time 10 years and still get Brennan and still get all these guys for more serious charges of conspiracy of a coup d'etat, sir?
That's how conspiracy cases can work. You can charge a series of events into a larger conspiracy and go back beyond the window of time that the normal statute of limitations for any single crime occurred. And
we'd be going back 9 years, pushing 10 years. Who potentially could be held accountable and face a federal prison charge, a federal charge in this conspiracy, in this alleged conspiracy case that he says we're going to hear more about in the next 2 weeks? Okay. How about Obama's former CIA director, John Brennan? How about Obama's former director of national intelligence, James Clapper? How about Obama's director of national security, Susan Rice? All of these people were directly involved in this operation to defame and discredit and paint this narrative, really trying to manipulate the outcome of the 2016 election. Crossfire Hurricane is what it's called. Donald Trump is a Russian asset. How about former FBI director James Comey? We know he was involved in this. A lot of people could go down in this. If this ends up being true, we could see a lot of big names getting hung up in this situation here.
There's also, prosecutors can make a very powerful argument that if you didn't know the crime had occurred because it had been hidden, the statute of limitations could actually reset for a period of time. But I think the most likely scenario is a large conspiracy case, and it starts in the middle of July 2016 when John Brennan walks into President Obama 2 weeks before, or a few days before Crossfire Hurricane's launch, and said, hey, we have this intercepted information that Hillary Clinton has authorized a program to make it look like Donald Trump's a Russian spy. And
Hillary Clinton authorized it. So we said John Brennan, James Clapper, Susan Rice, James Comey. Who authorized this originally? Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Vladimir Putin is helping him. President Obama and Brennan knew before the FBI opened up on that information that this was a dirty trick by Hillary Clinton.
Michael,
that would be the first overt act, and then it would carry all the way through Ukraine impeachment. It could go into the FBI refusing to look at the Chinese interference in the 2020 election as one of the overt acts. They didn't want to help Donald Trump, so they ignored a potential counterintelligence threat. It allows for a very large series of events to be wrapped into a single conspiracy and all of them to be brought into the indictment.
Okay, I'm with you guys. Listen, a lot of people say nothing ever happens. Nobody ever gets held accountable. It's not going to happen. Nobody's going to jail. Well, he said, give it 2 weeks. And I know that's the joke. That's the meme. 2 weeks, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. We're always 2 weeks away from something. So this guy says 2 weeks. All right. Well, listen, once again, keep in mind, this is real. This is not fake news. This is real. This happened about 3 or 4 hours ago. Matt Gaetz was set to speak at this ongoing Charlie Kirk Turning Point USA event that's going on yesterday, today, I think tomorrow also, this big convention they're doing where all the top conservatives are invited to go speak and give their opinion on stuff. Well, Matt Gaetz was set to speak at this event today. They canceled him. They pulled him from the broadcast. They pulled him out. Why? It's because he was summoned by President Trump to reroute. He's on his way to Washington, D.C. He's probably there right now. Breaking news. Matt Gaetz has been pulled from the Charlie Kirk event, summoned to D.C. by President Trump. Gaetz will not be speaking at the Student Action Summit today. Trump wants him in D.C. This is news. Everybody's talking about this here. The question is, like we said a moment ago, is he being tapped for special prosecutor? Not to be the new attorney general. Listen, we know in order to become the attorney general, the Senate has to confirm you got to have 51 votes in the Senate, I believe. And they already tried that. They wouldn't do it. That's why they went with Pam Bondi. You even had Republicans saying, listen, this is 7 months ago now. We're not going to have Attorney General Matt Gaetz. However, he could become a special prosecutor. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Now, like I've said, this entire Turning Point USA event is ongoing, and one of the big topics, I was shocked by this. I'm surprised that they are even talking about all of this Epstein stuff at Turning Point USA, let alone who is Epstein working for. Okay, these 2 videos we're about to watch, we're about to go through this together. We're going to break it down point by point. Thank you all for tuning in. If you are new, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button on Rumble. We are live on Rumble. Matt Morris TV on Rumble. We are live for the very first time, and we're live on YouTube at the same time. We're everywhere. So thank you all very much for tuning in on both platforms. It's a good day. Megyn Kelly, Charlie Kirk talking about who is Epstein? Who is he working for? Why was he doing what he was doing? And then we have a video from Tucker Carlson. This clip here, it's 10 minutes long. We're going to break down the entire thing. This one is going viral. Everybody around the world is talking about this because Tucker, he just rips into the entire dynamic, the Epstein cover-up. And so, folks, this is the point of today's show where the broadcast is going to get a little bit controversial. Everybody, let's be mature about this, okay? Let's play the clip. Charlie Kirk, Megyn Kelly, here we go. What do they have to say about this?
Do you think there's any intel community involvement in this?
I wouldn't be surprised one bit. I am convinced, based on my own sources and my own reporting on this story, he wasn't one of ours.
So he was an American, which leads basically 3 options: MI6, Saudi, or Mossad.
Yep.
MI6, Saudi Arabia, or Mossad. These are the 3 most competent intelligence agencies around the world. I think Russia and China also have competent intelligence agencies, but they're not involved in any of this, really. And so he says the options here: United States, Mossad, which is Israel, or the Saudi Arabians.
Which one would you choose?
I guess Mossad, given his connection to Ghislaine Maxwell.
As a reminder, we're going to deep dive this here in a minute. If you guys haven't heard this news, Ghislaine Maxwell, her dad was an Israeli Mossad super spy. And we're going to break down that a little bit more here in a couple minutes.
So what does that mean?
Well, I mean, it's possible that that's the reason everything's getting buried, that there is some treasure trove, and it's getting buried because...
How many people here believe that? Raise your hand. Okay, I'd say about half the hands think that it's being buried because of an Israeli thing.
It could be. I really don't know.
I have no evidence to suggest that.
No, me neither. I did think it was very odd how, look, half of you raised your hands because you've heard that theory, you've heard it debated, you have questions. But the one time Pam Bondi was asked a question about this at the cabinet meeting on Monday, she was like, and as for whether he was an agent, that I don't know. I haven't looked into that. I'll get back to you. You haven't looked into it? What do you mean? So that was kind of a fishy answer.
And Megyn, remember Alexander Acosta in 2007.
That's right.
He said he was told to treat Epstein carefully because he was an intel asset. That's
2007. That's on the record. That's public record. Also in 2007, Epstein was working with the FBI during his, remember, Epstein first got convicted. He had 2 convictions. The first time in 2008, the investigation was about 18 months prior to that. During the investigation, and those 2 convictions were for trafficking child prostitutes. He had 2 convictions from this. In 2008 is when he first got busted. Well, during that investigation leading up to his 2 convictions, we know, a public record on the record, he was trading information with the FBI during that investigation. So we know for a fact on 2 occasions during 2007, really, with Jim Acosta, or what was the guy's name he said, to be clear?
Fully, because he was an intel asset. That was one of Trump's cabinet secretaries.
Anyway, so we know that he was trading intel.
Who was literally a U.S. attorney 3 hours from here in Florida. He said that himself.
Well, and let me tell you the consequences of that. His subpoena, his search warrant on Jeffrey Epstein's residence was very narrow. It was not the kind of like, let's get everything. Let's see everything inside this guy's, dressers and so on. It was very, very narrowly tailored. And to this day, that's what the FBI is stuck with. So it really is possible that Dan and Cash got in there and, in like a Geraldo and Al Capone's vault situation, opened it up and we're like, oh my gosh, there's nothing in here. Like, we did not find the magic documents or photos or evidence of anything. And why not? I don't know we'll ever know why not. I'm not sure we'll ever know, but.
Well, let me tell you something. Megyn Kelly leads us into our next talking point that actually answers that question. Why not? Maybe there was no intelligence on the Epstein properties. That doesn't mean there wasn't intelligence anywhere else. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But first, we have a massive super chat from Build and Fix with Mooney. He says, thank you, Matt, for the awesome news updates. I appreciate you. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you for the massive super chat. Thank you very much. Happy Saturday. Shout out the Rumble chat. Shout out the YouTube chat. We are on both platforms right now. And we're trying to break this entire situation down, okay? Do we have any concrete answers? No, we have all these breadcrumbs and we're trying to put this stuff together. So thank you all very much for coming back day after day. And you guys are helping me. I'm helping you. You're helping me trying to make sense of what in the hell is going on here. God bless America. Also, thank you for that membership. Okay, so Megyn Kelly, she asked the question, where's the intelligence? Maybe they legitimately found no intelligence when they started raiding this guy's properties. In 2019 after they arrested him. Well, Bongino actually said something, Dan Bongino, who's now the FBI deputy director, in 2023, 2 years ago, he said something that relates to this really pertinently. I want to play this clip for you guys. Pay attention now.
About a year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but the short story, but not who they are. It says, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like,
intelligence asset for people in the Middle East.
You sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that. That he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset, meaning his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know. But this person, who's a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right? Swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. So
this is why we're playing this clip. Okay, so Dan Bongino also echoes the sentiment that Epstein seems to be an intelligence asset for some country in the Middle East. Charlie Kirk says, is it Saudi Arabia? Is it Israel? We don't know. Megyn Kelly says she thinks it's Israel, the Mossad. And so he 2 years ago answers Megyn Kelly's question from today. She says, well, is it possible the FBI didn't find any video footage or client list or whatever, really any evidence, I guess, for lack of a better word? Yeah, I suppose, but that doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't have it, right? It is a wrong, incorrect assumption to assume that Epstein is the only one that had access to this blackmail information. Maybe somebody else has it, still has it out there to this day.
The point is, to sum it up, How do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions? Because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right? How do you know?
100%.
I mean,
let's get personal.
That's right. And so, folks, that's why this entire situation is so confusing here. This is where we segue into this massive bombshell, viral Tucker Carlson rant. I've seen a couple of clips from this. I couldn't believe that Tucker Carlson went up here and said what he said at Turning Point USA yesterday afternoon. You're not going to believe this. Everybody's talking about this clip. We're going to play this, break this down point for point. I have some additional commentary here. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in today. You're not going to believe what you're about to hear. Here we go.
I don't like to vote, but I did vote this time. And I don't like to vote because I don't believe in any of them. And this time I really felt like I know Trump well. I love Trump personally. And what we were looking at was just so awful and totalitarian and stupid. And it wasn't even the arguments that I disagreed with from the Kamala Harris. It's weird to even say her name now. Who was that exactly? It was like a bad dream.
You know, Kamala Harris is still the highest polling Democratic politician right now. If Democrats had to pick one person to who's the leader of the Democrat Party, still it's Kamala Harris. As far as the Democrats are concerned, these people are incompetent.
But it wasn't even so much the arguments I disagreed with, though I definitely disagreed with the arguments. It was the style of argument that drove me completely bonkers, summarized most crisply by "shut up, racist." Whatever you said, it was "shut up, racist." And it's like, but wait, first of all, I'm not a racist, but that's not even the point. The point is, I just told you what I think. I just asked you an entirely legitimate question, mostly, what the hell are you doing? And rather than answer it, you didn't pay me the respect that you would a human being. You treated me like a slave or an animal by telling me to stop barking. Shut up, racist.
And this is how they handled the border situation for 4 years. They opened up the border. They're allowing over 5 million people to come, illegal aliens, invaders, to enter our country through this open border per year. Over 20 the number I hear is 21 million people came in the country. And if you, American citizen, American taxpayer, American that cares about the national sovereignty of America, if you say, hold up, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't have an open border. Shut up, racist. Shut up. What are you, racist? That is how they handled it. He's exactly right.
And I won't put up with that because I'm not a slave or an animal. I'm an American citizen, an adult man who pays his taxes. So, I ask people questions for a living, and very often I get answers that I don't care for, that I disagree with, that I think are stupid. But at least they're answers. At least the person responding is treating me like a human being with a soul created in the image of the Creator. He's paying me the respect that every human being is due. When you ask a direct question to someone in charge, you are due. That person is morally bound to give you an answer.
That is right.
He's not bound to agree with you, but he's bound to stop and answer your question.
Now, folks, I did some research here. Okay, President Joe Biden, President Autopen, as some of us call him, he was in the White House for 4 years, as we all know, regrettably. During his 4-year reign in the White House, Joe Biden answered just 5 questions from the White House press corps during his cabinet meetings over the course of 4 years. In 4 years, he answered 5 questions from the White House press corps during his cabinet meetings. Guys, President Trump, however, has been in the White House now for 6 months, maybe 6.5 months. This is public. People are keeping count of this. They're keeping track. President Trump in 6 months has answered 95 questions from the White House press corps during his cabinet meetings. 95 questions in 6 months versus 5 questions in 4 years. So this is what we're talking about, Tucker Carlson. Listen, our elected officials, they are obligated to serve us. That's why we vote for them. That's why we elect them. They have to give us answers, right? They have to keep us clued in.
And the left never did that. At the heart
of
why the Epstein thing is so distressing. I mean, the guy was some weird sex freak who was abusing girls. We knew that. But the fact that the U.S. government, the one that I voted for, refused to take my question seriously and instead said, case closed, shut up, conspiracy theorist, was too much for me.
You already see this narrative. Listen, guys, I think we all kind of feel the same way about the stuff. We're all Trump voters, conservative Americans, whatever we own. I think we're all kind of on the same side of the aisle here, generally speaking. Pay attention right now to the influencers, to the politicians, to the content creators that are telling you this is not a big deal. Shut up, guys. It's time to move on. This Epstein stuff, come on, really? You're still talking about that? It's not a big deal. Shut up. Pay attention. I want you to go on YouTube, go on Twitter. Pay attention to the people that are telling you, guys, come on, Americans. Is it really that big of a deal if we have an international child sex trafficking ring blackmailing all of our politicians? That's not that big of a deal. It's time to move on. Let's stop talking about this. I want you to take note. Pay attention. Remember the names of the people that are telling you that you need to get over this, because this is a big deal. This is a massive deal. And that's why we've been talking about this every day for a week now.
And I don't think the rest of us should be satisfied with that. And by the way, let me just say really quickly, because I was so mad about it that I think I found out part of what's going on. I think we are going to find out more.
I hope so.
And I think the truth, for whatever it's worth, in case you're interested, is that the DOJ didn't release lots of incriminating sex videos with Epstein and his billionaire pals because they don't have them. They don't have them because when the original search warrant was served, 2007, I think, possibly 2006, I think 7, it was basically designed to protect Epstein. The search warrant was written in such a way to make sure that the feds never got their hands on the actually incriminating evidence. It's another way of saying the cover-up has been going on since 2007, almost 20 years.
20 years.
So the real question is not, was Jeffrey Epstein a weirdo who was abusing girls? Yes, we can answer that. The real question is, why was he doing this, on whose behalf, and where did the money come from? And those are the questions that need to be answered. And I think it's...
Once again, right now, the official narrative from the FBI and the DOJ is that Epstein was just doing this. Epstein, over 20 or something years, trafficked over 1,000 young underage girls just because he felt like it, just because he was a freak and he's just a sex predator, but there was nobody else involved. That is the official narrative. That's what they are telling us. Guys, nobody else was involved. Shut up. He was a lone actor, and stop asking questions. That is the narrative right now. Bullshit.
Entirely fair to ask them, and it's not adequate to say anyone who asked them is somehow desecrating the memory of little girls who died in Texas. I'm not going to put up with that answer. I don't care who gives that answer. That is not acceptable. And I think the real answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American. And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working? How does a guy go from being a math teacher at the Dalton School in the late 70s with no college degree to having multiple airplanes, a private island, and the largest residential house in Manhattan? Where did all the money come from? And no one has ever gotten to the bottom of that because no one has ever tried. And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing.
By the way, I'm sure he's about to say a similar thing. Folks, let's be very clear here. You are allowed to criticize the actions of the Israeli government or the Netanyahu administration or whoever's in charge at the time. You can say, hold up, hey, listen, you shouldn't do that. That's bad. We condemn that. That doesn't mean that you're a raging anti-Semite and you hate every Jewish person in the world. In the very same way, let's bring it back home here. Let's make this a domestic thing. We here, Americans, we love to criticize our own government. In fact, we're doing it right now. Does that mean that we hate Americans? When we criticize our leaders all the time. It's probably the number one hobby in America is criticizing the government. We criticize our government all the time. Does that mean that we hate Americans? We hate every single American and we wish death upon all the Americans? No, listen, you're allowed. In fact, you're not allowed. You are supposed to criticize your government, to hold them accountable. That's how it's supposed to work. So once again, saying, hey, listen, if this is the case with the Israeli government or Mossad or whatever, that doesn't mean you're a raging anti-Semite. That's absurd. That's ridiculous. A lot of people don't know this. He's talking about this guy, Ehud Barak. This is the former Israeli prime minister. Ehud Barak met with Jeffrey Epstein dozens of times, flew on a private plane Former Prime Minister visited the disgraced financier Epstein, the child abuser Epstein, about 30 times between 2013 and 2017, including 2014 private flights in Florida. And so, folks, keep in mind, just real quick, let's make sure we get the timeline correct here. Epstein was first convicted of trafficking underage sex slaves in 2008. That was in 2008. So 5 years after the entire country knew, the entire world knew Epstein was a PDF file and a child abuser and a sex trafficker, whatever you want to call it, all of the above. 5 years after that, Ehud Barak was still hanging out with him 30 different times. So that's what Tucker is talking about at that point. We'll keep playing the video here.
You have had all this contact with the foreign government. Were you working on behalf of Mossad? Were you running a blackmail operation on behalf of foreign government? By the way, every single person in Washington, D.C. thinks that. I've never met anyone who doesn't think that. I don't know any of them that hate Israel, but no one feels they can say that. Why? And I think the longer that we play along with it, the more subterranean and creepy and hateful the conversation actually becomes.
Can we just talk about the implication here? Let's say this is true. Let's just go down the rabbit hole here real quick. Whether or not it is, let's just hypothesize here for a moment. Okay, Epstein was operating for 15 to 20 years a child prostitution human trafficking ring to harvest blackmail for the purpose of harvesting blackmail on American politicians or the American elite. What does that mean? That means that Mossad, the Israeli intelligence apparatus, was doing this on American soil for 15 years. That's like let's put this on the table. Let's unpackage this. If this is true, what this means is that Mossad, the intelligence agency of Israel, was trafficking child sex slaves in the United States for well over a decade, maybe more, and harvesting blackmail on the American political elite. That's what that means. If it is true, that's pretty bad. If that is the case, that's a pretty bad thing to do, to say the least.
So I think the case with
this is, I just need to pause. We're over here on the right side of the aisle. We like to talk about free speech. This is the free marketplace of ideas. Listen, let's have the difficult conversations and weigh out the options and put the facts and the evidence on the table and break it down. We're adults. We are the adults in the country. It sure as hell is not the progressives. Free marketplace of ideas. Let's dissect all of this. But we do have some of these topics where it's like, hey, you need to shut up. Hey, shut the hell up. Hey, listen, there's nothing going on here. Stop asking questions. Shut the hell. It's like, hold up, wait a minute. I thought we're doing the free marketplace of ideas thing. I thought we can have adult conversations like this. Now, I do want to double back real quick. One of the reasons why a lot of people, this is actually probably the number one reason why people allege that Epstein was an agent of Mossad or an affiliate of Mossad, is this guy, Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell is the biological father of Ghislaine Maxwell. Robert Maxwell was pretty much a Mossad. We're on the Wikipedia page here. He was pretty much a super spy. The British Foreign Intelligence Office. So this is the British intelligence. They had determined that he was Mossad. They had determined he was Mossad. There's actually a book that is written about all of this that kind of breaks all this down. Robert Maxwell, Israel's Super Spy, is the name of this book that really deep dives the entire topic here. The authors of the book argue that Maxwell helped the Mossad steal intelligence gathering software from the United States and then sold it around the world. And so I think a lot of people say, okay, hold up. So Epstein was operating this entire situation, child sex trafficking, whatever, and his number two, his girlfriend or whatever, his partner in crime was Ghislaine Maxwell, who is the daughter of the Mossad super spy. That's kind of weird. So I think a lot of people were saying, yeah, that's a little bit weird.
An unhappy personal life is spending too much time on Twitter.
This analogy here is that the progressives that engage in this type of rhetoric, shut up, racist, they actually do have the mentality of children. So this is a fitting analogy here.
Criminal here? You seem to be.
And so this, ladies and gentlemen, is this viral Tucker Carlson monologue from Turning Point USA convention yesterday. That is kind of controlling the entire narrative right now. Everybody's talking about this. Now, folks, we have gone through almost all of the information that I have to share with you guys today, but there's one more thing. Right as I was going live today, this was posted by Kash Patel on Twitter about 85 minutes ago, 90 minutes ago. I want to read this to you. Kash Patel comes out right as I was getting ready to do my broadcast, and he says, "The conspiracy theories just aren't true. They never have been. It's an honor to serve the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and I'll continue to do so for as long as he calls on me." So this is Kash Patel, who's the FBI director, just coming out 90 minutes ago saying, listen, guys, all this stuff you're saying about Epstein, none of it's real. It's all fake. It's all fake news. Fake news. Epstein, conspiracy, blackmail, foreign intelligence, foreign asset, blah, blah, blah. Conspiracy bullshit. Nope. Because once again, right now, as things currently stand, the official narrative is that Epstein was a lone actor. Well, I mean, of course, he had Maxwell. He had Maxwell, and they were trafficking kids just for their own personal enjoyment or satisfaction, and that they didn't have any clients, and that nobody else was involved, and that they were not harvesting blackmail, and that it was just the two of them just doing it because that's what they love to do, is traffic children. I don't buy it. Oh yeah, except we know that there was one client who is Prince Andrew of the British royal family, but don't worry about him. Don't think about him. He had like a $20 million settlement with one of the victims, actually. Don't worry about that, though. Don't think about that. So outside of him, there were no other clients. Nothing else happened here. And also keep in mind, this memo that got released 4 or 5 days ago now, to be clear, it didn't say that there was no client list. It said that there was no incriminating client list. That word is imperative. They didn't say that there's no client list. There's no incriminating client list. They put that word there very intentionally, because what that means is that, in fact, there is a client list. There is a list of clients, but that they investigated it and they've determined that no wrongdoing was done, that nothing is incriminating. And so they're just going to move on. Don't worry about it. That means American people, shut up, stop asking questions, and we're moving on. We're dropping this. And so that's where we are right now. That is where we are right now. This is the bombshell news of the day. Kash Patel 90 minutes ago says, guys, the conspiracies are over. We're moving on. So, like I said, I hate ending my broadcasts without some type of clean resolution that kind of wraps up the entire deal. But folks, at the moment, we just don't have a resolution. Every day, all we can do is keep tracking all of the news, keep tracking all the information as it comes out. And every day we've had a lot more stuff coming out, and try to make sense of it together. So I want to say thank you all very, very much for chiming in today, for tuning in today, and also helping me figure this stuff out. I appreciate it, guys. We're trying to get to the bottom of this, but we need to keep talking about this. We do, because this is important. Like I said about 45 minutes ago, some people are saying, come on, guys, it's not a big deal. It's time to move on, blah, 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 whatever. Hey, listen, actually, I'm an American citizen. I think it is a big deal if there is an international community of child sex traffickers, human traffickers, harvesting blackmail on our American political ruling class. I think that is a problem. I think that is a big deal. I think we do need to get to the bottom of that. To say otherwise, it's like, hey, who really cares if all of our politicians are being blackmailed by international child sex traffickers? Who really cares? It's not that big of a deal. Hello, I think it's a big deal. We got to get to the bottom of this, and we need to not shut up. We need to keep digging into this. So, guys, thank you very much. That's going to be a wrap for the show. Follow me on Rumble, Matt Morse TV on Rumble. Shout out to the Rumble guys. Shout out to the YouTube guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Like the video, subscribe, follow, do it all. One more final basic request. If you guys have not followed me on Twitter yet, I want to drop my Twitter link. Follow on Twitter. That is huge. And I may or may not be back tomorrow. I'm not sure, but definitely on Monday. I will be back on Monday. Thank you, guys. Have a great